This past summer, I volunteered in Madrid, Spain for 2 weeks in a home for adults with schizophrenia. They live with each other, one apartment for the men and one apartment for the women, with a social worker there at all times. My responsibilities as a volunteer include planning daily events for them, such as English bingo, painting, and dancing. When I was not participating in one of the activities that I planned, I accompanied them on the day-to-day errands, such as going to the hospital and sitting in on their daily emotional therapy. In these therapies, they learn how to deal with their feelings. This includes learning how to communicate with other people when they are upset and how to not get too angry. We would do this in a workshop formation where one day we may make puppets and write a script about how we were feeling, and the next day we would act it out as a show for the rest of the adults. I love this government-provided home. It was extremely different from the psychiatric wards and homes that we have here in America. The adults got to cook their own meals and take out their own trash, performing their day-to-day habits that they may have done in their own homes. Usually in America, people or their insurance have to pay for these facilities, but in Spain, the government pays for it, everything included. I think that we can learn from this healthcare structure instead of just spoon-feeding people expecting that they can't take care of themselves and forcing them to pay money to live in a facility with unnecessary additives. We could set up homes like the ones I volunteered in, where people still live somewhat independently and get to do work for themselves. One important thing I learned about the healthcare system in Spain was the handicap policies. If you were more than a certain percent handicap, for example, if you had a club foot, you would not legally be allowed to work. This meant that a large majority of the homeless people in Spain were handicapped. This can be applied directly to what we learned about the socioeconomic disparities when it comes to the homeless. They could not work because they are handicapped, so they could not afford treatment for their handicap, turning it into a bitter cycle where they are forced to sit, unable to help themselves, unable to transport themselves, and unable to get treatment. A lot of times, seeing these people bothered me. You could tell they were not ill or drug addicts. They simply were different physically and put onto the street because of that. Having a global perspective was definitely important for my travels. It reminded me not to gawk at the homeless and helped me to remember that every country has its own version of healthcare. The overall American perspective is to take care of all ill and handicapped people, so if someone has a physical handicap, they get preferential treatment in the form of parking passes, ramps, front-of-line access, and even government aid. When taking into consideration what is important and what is not important through my global health lens, I decided that this treatment was important and that it is in fact unjust. The most impactful experience that I went through would have to be at the end of my 2-week volunteer period. It was my last day, and so I and the girls I was volunteering with were newfound friends a letter. Eugenio, one of the men that I grew very close to, read the letter out loud, but he had to stop halfway through due to his tears. After the letter was read, they hugged us and kissed us repeatedly, sticking their heads out the window to yell goodbye as we walked away. I never thought that simply playing cards, helping to cut out sick people, or talking to someone about their grandchildren would make such an impact, and yet I found myself crying as I said goodbye to them as well. This experience taught me that schizophrenic people are just like me. I had always had a preconceived idea that people with mental illnesses were crazy or different. But sitting with them day after day, I felt like I was just talking to someone in my own family, an adult that I could trust. Culturally, I learned how important touch is. Spaniards are extremely affectionate. Here in America, we greet with a handshake and often look around as we speak, not devoting a full attention. In Spain, though, people greet one another with kisses, and mid-conversation they throw their arm around your shoulder, their voices loud and filled with emotions. After traveling around Spain for 3 weeks and talking to people everywhere I went, I became accustomed to this more personal, familial way of speaking. It makes you feel as though the person you are conversing with is fully invested and happy about your conversation, not just trying to pass time. Since being in Spain, I've also started to apply this more touchy, personal way of speaking. I now make more eye contact and try to make sure the person I'm talking to felt as good as I felt when people in Spain were speaking to me. The last take-home message that I learned was about myself. Throughout this trip, I really discovered myself as a writer. I found myself being inspired constantly by the couples kissing on the train or the tall buildings covered in paint and history. Poems were writing themselves as I walked down the streets, and eventually this even led to me writing a blog about my journey to share with my friends and family back home, something that I had not felt comfortable doing before, featuring some of my poems on it as well. All in all, traveling to Spain was a life-changing experience. I got to understand the healthcare systems around the world better and developed a deeper relationship with myself in the process.